Hello, my name is Elizabeth George, student physical therapist, and I'll be talking about my understanding of self leadership, my self leadership journey over this term, as well as my plans for continued growth in my academic, clinical, and professional career. So, initially thinking about my understanding of self leadership from this term, I've come to understand that self leadership is the ability to guide myself in order to reach both a personal and a professional goal. I don't think it's necessarily just about completing the task or the deadline by a certain day, but I think it's about knowing myself and managing my emotions and making sure that my actions line up with my values and my goals. A few key self leadership parts or components that stood out to me initially was self awareness. This is foundational to me. I think it means being honest about my strengths and my weaknesses and reflecting on how my emotions affect my interactions. I was able to see this through my emotional intelligence assessment. This showed me that I scored high in this area, which made sense because I do often journal or reflect when processing my emotions. I think in the category of self-management, which was another category, this is where you take that awareness and you put it into action. I scored lower here, which showed me that I need to better manage my anxiety or those frustrations. It might be interfering with my ability to stay productive or positive. Accountability was another category, and to me, this means owning my responsibilities and keeping myself on track and being open to feedback. I also think that being open to feedback can correlate with having a growth mindset. When thinking about self leadership, I think growth mindset is saying it's never finished. It's always about learning from your mistakes and pushing myself forward to improve and being willing to change. Another category was that advocacy and responsibility. As a future physical therapist, self leadership also means speaking up for your patients and recognizing those gaps in healthcare and promoting equity in the profession. Overall, I can see that self leadership is an ongoing process of managing myself so I can make those good decisions and handle those challenges in those different scenarios and stay aligned with my goals and the things that I want to achieve. When I look at my self leadership journey through this term, I overall think that this term had multiple assignments that really shaped my growth and really had an impact. Initially, through that advocacy reflection, is where I really found that interest in understanding that physical therapy is not just about treatment, but it is advocating for those patients in those communities. A lot of times I thought about the patients that come from those have those barriers from rural areas or the travel distance or the cost interference that might be limiting them from getting the care that they need. And I also remember thinking about how important telehealth would be for to bridge those type of gaps. The emotional intelligence test that I spoke about earlier or previously gave me that insight into my strengths and weaknesses. It showed that I scored high in self awareness and the relationship management, which showed that I value my reflection and collaboration, but I scored lower in that self management, which helped me realize that my emotions sometimes do interfere with my productivity, and that's something that I can change and work on. The core value self assessment helped me see where I already care, where I live out those values, like the accountability, the altruism, and the compassion, but also where I can grow, like in balancing those deadlines and improving my consistent self reflection, making it more consistent. Finally, I think implicit bias reflection was another very impactful assignment. It really reminded me that bias is everywhere and it can affect everyone, even when it's unconscious. That experience just showed me how important it is to reflect on my own behaviors and commit to having that culture of humility with every patient interaction that I have. Together, I think these assignments gave me a deeper understanding of myself and highlight those areas of growth and where I can reinforce those things that are important to me, as well as including the advocacy and inclusion in healthcare. Plans for my future to continue to grow in this department or in self leadership. I think that journey, like I said previously, is ongoing, and those having clear goals in various categories, like academically, clinically, and professionally, it's what's going to help improve myself. I think academically, I want to plan to reflect deeply on my each assignment. I want to focus on not just completing that task, but understanding what I learned and why that was important, as well as wanting to improve how I manage those deadlines and have those practices that are more case based or more hands on to sharpen my clinical reasoning, and continuing to be open to that feedback, to be able to be a better a student, but that would also help me later in the future as a student, as a physical therapist. Clinically, I want to keep working on self management so I can control my stress and stay focused. I currently work in a inpatient rehab department, so I'm able to use a lot of the things I learned from professional formation and see how it works now and then continue to adjust. So, one thing I wanted to do was just be more attentive to those nonverbal cues from patients and building that strong relationship and having that cultural awareness to connect with patients from all different backgrounds. I wanted to plan to challenge my own biases by attending workshops and working with diverse populations. Professionally, I wanted to stay active in the physical therapy profession's events and those service opportunities that are available. I wanted to practice speaking up when I noticed the unprofessionalism or the discriminatory behavior and continue to improve my teamwork skills, especially if that later involves leading projects, for example. I also wanted to advocate for, more for patients in those underserved communities. We have a lot of patients that we see come in and out through inpatient, and sometimes we don't necessarily make that impact or decide to have a change and be impact in their life. We let them go on. So I think being present in each patient and being able to make an impact where I know that I can is important. And it'll not only be important now as a student, but later as a future clinician. I think overall, this term's assignments, as well as this previous term, gave me the valuable tools for understanding myself. And it let me build a roadmap and an idea of what type of physical therapist I would want to be in the future, with the mindset that I would want to have and the character that I would want to possess. I feel confident that by focusing on my self-awareness and my self-management and my accountability and my advocacy, that I'll continue to grow as both a self-leader, but also as a future physical therapist. Thank you so much.